What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of fights. This time it is UFC 277. Juliana Peña defending for the first time her championship at 135 against Amanda Nunes. Awesome rematch there in the main event. Co-main event is even better, in my opinion, between Brandon Moreno, the former flyweight champion, taking on Kai Kara-France in a 5-round co-main event for the interim flyweight championship. Enough high-level competition on this card to keep us interested. Enough low-level, sketchy competition to keep us on the edge of our seats as well. Go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep this channel growing. I appreciate all of the love and support so far. You guys are the absolute best. And without further ado, let's break into this 13-fight card. Kicking off this fight card at welterweight, we have Ryan Cosce returning to face Blood Diamond. Blood Diamond, also known as Mike Mathetha, also known as Israel Adesanya's training partner back in the professional kickboxing days that they shared. He's a city kickboxing guy, is Blood Diamond, 34 years old, 5'11", with a 76-inch reach, making his second walk to the cage after making his debut, I believe it was back in February, against Jeremiah Wells. He was unsuccessful, taking his first professional mixed martial arts loss. He is 3-1, very inexperienced. But he does tout over 100 professional kickboxing matches, so he's no slouch, no stranger to competitive combat sports. Ryan Cosce, 7-1, younger guy by 6 years, 28 years old. He's 5'11", 71-inch reach. For more of the mixed martial arts wrestler in Ryan Cosce, he's the brother of Nunes Cosce. Both of these guys were standouts on the Dana White Contender Series. Both got stoppages for their contract, and both are in the UFC. And unlike his brother Lewis, Ryan Cosce actually has power that translates later into the fights. He doesn't gas out as much as his brother. He does have a few round 3 stoppages as well. Very good at grounding his opponents and employing striking from the top position on the ground. He's coming off of a year ago, almost to the day, he'll be returning after a loss to Philip Rowe in round 2. And it was one of the more impressive losses by second-round knockout I've seen. He showed a lot of durability in that fight and won decisively the first round with his wrestling, his smothering top pressure, and strikes from the top position. So he was able to hold down Philip Rowe, who was a big guy and very crafty at, manipulating joints. He's a good BJJ player off of his back, is Philip Rowe. And Ryan Cosce stayed safe against that, was able to hold him down and not get out-transitioned or reversed on the ground. Blood Diamond suffered that to Jeremiah Wells. He got taken down very early in the fight, ground out, on bottom position for 4.5 minutes before getting tapped out by rear naked chokes. So this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. But as I mentioned before with Ryan Cosce, this differs from just a basic striker versus grappling matchup because Ryan Cosce can stand on the feet. He does have basic, MMA fundamental skills striking at boxing range. Pretty powerful strikes on the feet. Very aggressive, but the chin is something that I think really is overlooked in Ryan Cosce. You see his record and you see he got knocked out by Philip Rowe. Philip Rowe is pretty darn good. He's got a very long, 80-something inch reach at this weight class. And, Ryan Cosce was able to close the distance on him, get him to the ground. And then also in round 2, he was able to withstand, I don't even know how many knees landed flush from the 6'3" size of Philip Rowe. He's got that nice knee up the middle. He landed it flush on Ryan Cosce 4, 5, 6 times. And Cosce just stood there and took it, So he also took that laser right hand from Philip Rowe a few times before eventually he just got overwhelmed with strikes and stopped in round 2. Blood Diamond, what I'm trying to say with this is, I'm picking Ryan Cosce here and I'm talking a little bit badly about his striking defense, but he is tough as hell and he's going to have to maybe eat a strike or two to get in range against that 76-inch reach of Blood Diamond. So I think Ryan Cosce does just enough with the boxing, just enough with the striking to hide the takedown threat. He can easily change levels and get Blood Diamond to the mat. I saw some people defending the takedown defense of Blood Diamond. I mean, he was able to stuff a couple somewhat takedown attempts from Jeremiah Wells. It was really just like a body lock trip. He was able to stay on his feet just with his, pure balance and athleticism. But he got taken down very quickly and had no way to get off of the cage or back up to his feet. I think the same will be done on Saturday. I think Ryan Cosce's got a very good chance to get this fight to the ground and get a grounded pound stoppage late. So give me a Ryan Cosce here. He is currently, I believe, a minus 155 favorite. I'm not sure if money's come in on him. Let me double check this with Blood Diamond being about a plus 130 underdog. Let's see if that's still accurate. I saw these lines last night. Okay, so a little bit of money has come in on Ryan Cosce, but still right around, a little bit more has. Minus 170, minus 175 I'm seeing for Ryan Cosce. It's a little suspect to bet on a guy who we haven't seen in a while, but I think he's young, improving. He's got a well-rounded skill set, and even as young as he is, he's got way more MMA experience and just that glaring difference in his takedown ability. I'll take Ryan Cosce to win this fight. As I mentioned, I think he gets it done inside the distance. All of his wins are by stoppage. I think he gets another one on Saturday. I'm going to call it round 2 TKO. Light heavyweight bout up next between Negumereanu, who welcomes a UFC debutant in Ihor Potieria. Potieria is the minus 150 favorite. Negumereanu around plus 120 to plus 130, the underdog. Money has been coming in on Negumereanu. Ihor Potieria opens as a favorite as a debutant in this spot over Negumereanu. That's probably a couple things, right? Potieria is fresh off of a round 1 knockout on the Dana White Contender Series last fall. He is 20-2 for the Ukrainian southpaw. Potieria is 26 years old, 6'3", a 75-inch reach. Pretty big for 205. Negumereanu is 27 years old, very young guy as well, 6 foot tall, and he's got 3 inches of reach over Potieria. 78-inch reach, surprisingly, for Negumereanu, who is 12-1. Pretty good record, but we've seen really that record start to be tested quite a bit at the UFC level. You know, he was a potent finisher, was Negumereanu, outside of the UFC, and as such with a lot of guys when they come to this level, you know, you start getting those greasy decisions. You can't finish people as much. And that's really all the decisions have come in the UFC, right? 2 greasy split decisions, one over Alexa Kamer and one over, most recently, Kennedy Nzechukwu, a fight he probably lost, honestly, or at least got a draw in. And then 1 decision loss in his debut against Saparbek Safarov, which is not a good guy to lose to in your debut. So he was able to, you know, kind of rebound after that loss against Alexa Kamer, show some pretty good durability, some decent fundamental striking on the feet, but mostly some wrestling and strength against the cage. Same thing against Kennedy Nzechukwu, who was deducted a point in their fight, leading to the Negumereanu split decision victory. But, you know, Negumereanu able to withstand a lot of the strikes of Kennedy Nzechukwu, work his way into the long reach of Nzechukwu and get him against the cage and to the ground. So edging out a very close fight in both of his decision wins so far. Potieria, on the other hand, just walks through all of his opponents, but 20-2, I mean, these guys are not very good on the Ukrainian regional scene. I've seen a lot of these highlight reel footage. I've seen a lot of the full fights I was able to watch from Potieria. Not very good takedown defense. Any guys who are able to actually show like some modicum of wrestling are able to grind him against the cage, take him down. And in some of those sketchy European promotions, I've seen guys in you know, half guard or full guard, you know, raining down strikes on Potieria, and the ref just stands it up right in the middle of an active striking sequence where Potieria is in trouble. So he's been saved a lot. The record certainly is padded a bit. You know, only his last 3 fights, including the one on the Contender Series, were against positive record opponents, which is insane for such a big record that he has. So I can see him getting ground out against Negumereanu. Negumereanu is very durable, and that helps him stay at striking range enough to move his way into the close contact with his opponent, get them against the fence, and then to the ground, where he can at least stay active, get some top control time, you know, just burn out the clock and get some, you know, some strikes from the top position. So, you know, he's got better experience, does Negumereanu. He's got, you know, the better opponents he's faced, better wrestling, and I think he's durable. So I think the chin of Negumereanu is definitely going to be tested, and I don't want my money on Negumereanu. I don't think he's that great for all of the things I've been putting in his pro column here. You know, but Ihor Potieria, aside from his personality and, like, you know, he seems like a fun guy to have on the roster. I'm not really sold on the fact that he can defend the cage control, you know, circle off the cage and be defensive in the grappling against Negumereanu. So I don't want my money on either of these guys. Like I said, the takedown defense will be tested for Potieria. The durability of Negumereanu will be tested. I don't want my money on either of these guys, but for the sake of a pick, since I think this should be more of an even money play, I'll take the underdog money on Negumereanu. I think he grinds out a greasy decision once again. And maybe if the decision prop is fat enough, like over 3-1, maybe then I would choose Negumereanu. I'm not sure we'll get that lucky in the props, but give me Negumereanu by decision. First women's fight of the night at flyweight between Ji-Yeon Kim and Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards returning on short notice here to face Ji-Yeon Kim after Maria Agapova pulled out for injury. So Jocelyn Edwards steps up, and this is an interesting fight at flyweight because both women Well, one, Ji Yeon Kim has missed weight at this weight class a few times before. She's made it okay recently, but watch out for the scales here. And Jocelyn Edwards just stepped up on short notice against Ramona Pascal. The 145 aspect was short notice for her. I think she found out like a week or two ahead of time that Pascal was not going to make 135. So she's coming down 20 pounds here. It shouldn't be an issue for her, I don't think, but it'll be an interesting one to watch on the scales, I'll put it that way. 5'8" for Jocelyn Edwards. The younger woman at 26 years old, she has a 70-inch reach. Ji Yeon Kim, 72-inch reach, 32 years old, 5'7". So definitely the younger measurable here is what I'm looking at the most. They're going to measure up about the same. I think Edwards is a little bit bigger stature-wise and just muscular-wise. Former bantamweight for Ji Yeon Kim before she couldn't make it anymore, but so is Edwards as well, who's coming down from featherweight, as I mentioned. So these two women actually, on paper, kind of have similar styles, right? They both like to strike at range. Jocelyn Edwards probably a little bit better at striking up close, in my opinion, but both of their kryptonite is the same poison, which is getting taken down, and Ji Yeon Kim has the worst takedown defense out of the two of them, especially, even though Edwards showed that she could get ground out by a girl like Jessica Rose Clark and couldn't do much there. Ji Yeon Kim, in her long UFC tenure, every time she gets taken down, she pretty much loses the fight, has no real way to get back up to her feet or defend against them. So she is 9-5-2 for Ji Yeon Kim, 4-5 in decisions, and even two of those decisions that she has gotten the win have been split decisions. She also has 2 draws on her record, which, always managing to make it close. That can be good against good opponents, but against the lesser tier competition, she makes it way too close and often loses, and a lot of it becomes just a product of her getting taken down. And that the fact that her strikes really don't have the same stopping power that the strikes of Jocelyn Edwards tends to have. So even if this fight ended up being significant strikes equal, like 50-50, I would say that Edwards would still probably win the fight just based off of the more eye-catching strikes. She tends to stalk down her opponents, and Ji Yeon Kim can often be caught backpedaling on the back foot and counter-striking, moving backwards, which never looks good on the judges' scorecards. And that's why she lost her last fight, where she, I think, more than doubled up Priscilla Cachoeira on strikes, but Priscilla Cachoeira moving forward, trapping her against the cage, and landing the more eye-catching strikes, the more damaging strikes. It was a very greasy decision, one that I probably don't agree with fully, but you can see why the judges score it that way when she's moving backwards almost the entire fight. So I think Jocelyn Edwards just has more pop in her punches, and kicks, especially for Edwards, are going to be key. You don't often get to see her wonderful kicks, but she showed them against Ramona Pascal a bit. But again, try not to get taken down. Jocelyn Edwards will sometimes holster those kicks. I think she can let them go here and land a lot more significant strikes than we've seen her put up on average. So again, Kim has very nice straight long punches and kicks herself, but they're often at range. I think Edwards is also very good at striking in the pocket as well as at range. So, Jocelyn Edwards, I think she's like a purple belt in BJJ as well. So Ji Yeon Kim's takedown defense is so bad that I think if she wanted to dust off that purple belt and, show her coach what she's been learning in class, she could probably practice that on Ji Yeon Kim, but I don't see that happening unless things go horribly wrong for for Edwards, on the striking. If she's getting the worst end of the striking, she can always, rip out maybe a sloppy takedown or two, but I don't think she'll have to. This will play out largely at striking distance on the feet, and I think the younger, more powerful Edwards should get the decision nod here. So give me Jocelyn Edwards. She's minus 125 on the money line. Ji Yeon Kim, a slight underdog. I think the money line is playable on this fight. I'm pretty confident Edwards gets the job done. But if you do want to, beef this up and, maybe look for the decision prop, it might not be much more than her money line, and the money line is fair enough. So I would just take her by the money line at minus 125. Give me Edwards' decision. Moving right along to 170 again, we got Michael Morales taking on Adam Fugitt. Fugitt is on short notice, filling in for Ramis Brahimaj, who Michael Morales planned to face until just recently. Michael Morales, the young 23-year-old Ecuadorian, is 13-0. Very good record there, and 11 of those 13 wins are all stoppages. So 6 foot tall for Morales, 79-inch reach is the most shocking attribute for this guy's height. He's got a huge reach at 170. Adam Fugitt, very athletic frame as well. 33 years old for Fugitt, the older man, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach too. So very long arms for both of these guys. Adam Fugitt is the southpaw. Fugitt is coming off of a very impressive underdog victory in the LFA back in February. He beat Salomon Renfro, who was like a 6-1 favorite over Fugitt. You know, people were sleeping on Fugitt's Muay Thai past. They were sleeping on a lot of the striking potential. This guy certainly did have a lot of experience against, even compared to Renfro, who's a dangerous guy himself. Fugitt was able to, with that southpaw stance, use a very good counter right lead hook and knock out Renfro. A couple ground and pound strikes to, completely put him to sleep. Round 1 KO in like 43 seconds as like a plus, I don't know, he's maybe like a plus 400, plus 450 underdog, which he is once again over Michael Morales, who is a minus 600 favorite. So I can see why for Morales, he's got the youth, he's got the physical advantages, he's got a proven ability to not only strike at distance, up close, with knockout power in both hands, but he also has the ability to take this fight to the ground out control time, and even look for submissions as well. So Fugitt has proven that he's a pretty well-rounded mixed martial artist as well at 33 years old. He certainly has transitioned well from Muay Thai, also to doing some grappling competitions. He had one against Nick Maximov, I've seen as well. And, he shows some pretty good ability to take fighters down, do very good fundamental wrestling tricks on them, but it's usually over guys that are very inexperienced, and this will be by far his biggest test to date. Up until this point, it was Salomon Renfro, who was pretty inexperienced himself, a dangerous guy in Renfro, but, Adam Fugitt doesn't have, at mixed martial arts, that level of competition you'd like to see him tested against, so it's very easy for him to have looked good. A lot of the fights I've seen, he's looked very good. Even in Muay Thai, he landed one of the best spinning elbow knockouts I've ever seen. I mean, it was pretty much the male equivalent in Muay Thai of Molly McCann versus Luana Carolina back in March. It was pretty much the same strike, but in Muay Thai. But then I've also seen Fugitt look very bad. He got put on a poster and knocked out viciously by a Superman punch from Kalen Hill. And Kalen Hill, he's like a 4-2 guy over in, I think that was in, I don't remember a promotion that was in. I'm not sure if that was LFA, but Kalen Hill, we've seen on the Dana White Contender Series. He lost to Impa Kasanganay, and later he got knocked out by UFC newcomer AJ Dobson as well. So not very many high-level opponents. Oddly enough, Fugitt actually did have a early, in both of their careers, he fought Austin Vanderford, who's a Bellator standout, so he lost that fight as well. Fugitt, short notice, the smaller man, the less powerful man. He is a very capable striker. He does have a puncher's chance in this fight, but I think Morales isn't beat. Morales comes from a martial arts background of, both of his parents were into judo. That was his first martial art. He transitioned to mixed martial arts, like a complete mixed martial arts gym at like 15 years old, so only 8 years ago for this young 23-year-old, but this guy is so built physically for this sport and this division. I think he gets this done early and gets another one of his round 1 stoppages. So give me Michael Morales. I'd try to play him inside the distance, but I'm sure that will be a pretty hefty price tag on that as well. Up next at 155 pounds, we got Drakkar Klose taking on Rafa Garcia. And my first thought for this was the money line was a bit too wide in the favor of Drakkar Klose, minus 230. Rafa Garcia about a plus 195 underdog. Money is going back and forth on this one. It's pretty much staying right there. And as much as high level of competition as Drakkar Klose has been successful with, I still think the money line is quite high. Rafa Garcia, very good with the takedown offense. He lands not at really like a high percentage, but he's just so relentless with it. I think that could be an issue. He's pretty good with the boxing, is Rafa Garcia. His fundamentals are all good. His defense is decent, but he still gets outlanded quite a bit on average compared to what he puts out. I think it's like 3.5 strikes per minute to 5 coming back his way from his opponents significantly. So that's that's a little bit of an issue. He has lost some fights where he gets the relentless pressure with the takedown, some control time against the cage and on the ground, looking for some of the submissions he's known for in the regional combate scene. But he's only had one against one Jesse Ronson in his last fight. That was his first finish in the UFC, where he is 2-2. But he with all the control time, sometimes he does lose fights, like against Chris Grutzmacher and Nasrat Haqparast, because he simply gets outstruck on the numbers so decisively. Drakkar Klose is the much better striker, especially in his last fight. He returned against another short notice replacement, Brandon Jenkins, but he made it look so easy. Good dirty boxing, well-timed takedowns, working the jab nice and crisp. Very good combinations, not just throwing, like the jab overhand or the 2-3 the way that Rafa does, but very good combinations. Getting the the clinch position, dirty boxing, uppercuts that were painful, hooks that were painful, and he can finish it up when he smells blood and get the ground and pound strikes as well. So I like the well-rounded skills for Dzhokhar Klose. He is 34 years old, surprisingly, the older man. Rafa Garcia is, only 27. He's like a week away from being 28. They both are about the same height and reach. Dzhokhar Klose, 12-2-1, and his only he's 7-1 in decisions. His only knockout loss was to Beneil Dariush. His other loss was to David Tamer early on. But he's got high-level wins over guys like Mark Diakese, Lando Fanata, Bobby Green, Christos Giagos, and his takedown defense was tested, and he was taken down in those fights, able to either get back up to his feet or have done so much damage on the feet that he was able to squeak out those wins. So very good. Like I said, he uses the jab well to maintain distance. I think he's going to be the faster guy. He's light on his feet when he wants to be and move, or he can plant his feet and exchange very heavy, powerful strikes in the pocket at close range. So I like the striking by far and away for Dzhokhar Klose. I like the fact that he's probably going to be the faster, more athletic guy in this matchup. And he was preparing for Carlos Diego de Ferreira, who is he's an old man, an old Brazilian, but a savage at this weight class. Relentless pressure and pace. He was getting ready for somebody much higher level than Rafa Garcia by far. So I still think, if Dzhokhar Klose gets tired and Rafa Garcia gets tired, Rafa Garcia wins the fight. He can fight through fatigue. Probably his best attribute, in my opinion. Really does fight for your money. Not always the cleanest looking, but if both guys are dog tired, he'll win the fight. So just for that, I think this money line should be closer. I don't really see a lot of value on the minus 230 money line for Dzhokhar Klose. Maybe I would line it minus 200 for Dzhokhar Klose, but that doesn't leave me any edge over the bookie, right? So probably not a bet for me, but I am confident that he gets this win, and I'm just going to call it by decision. Guys, this might be my most anticipated fight of the entire fight card. This is Dontel Mays taking on a short notice replacement in Hamdi Abdelwahab, who is a Egyptian former Olympian in Greco-Roman wrestling, a big guy making his short notice debut. He's 3-0 as a professional mixed martial artist. Training out of New York, he is 6'2", tipping the scales at 264 pounds, 29 years young, and a 73-inch reach. Very big physique for this former Olympian wrestler. Dontel Mays is even bigger at 6'6", 260 pounds as well, tipping the heavyweight limit damn near, and he has an 81-inch reach. You would think Dontel Mays is like a Francis Ngannou knockout threat if you just saw a picture of the guy, but he's really not. Doesn't pack the most power, even though he is a very long boxer. 2-2 in the UFC so far, 2-1 on the Dana White Contender Series. They made him really work for his contract. He got knocked out back in 2017 on the show, and then 2018 and 19 he got stoppage victories. Finally earning his contract. He is the favorite at minus 150 here, a 9-4 record. So most recently we saw him this year take on Josh Parisian, or maybe that was the end of last year on the final card, I think it was. So maybe it was back in December of last year, but he took on Josh Parisian, dusted off his wrestling shoes and singlet, got 6 out of 8 takedowns on Josh Parisian, and eventually ground and pounded his way to a stoppage in round 3. So very impressive way to mix up his game. He did the same against, I think, Rocky Martinez. He also had some takedown success over. But the guys he hasn't had takedown success over are the better grapplers, right? Guys like Cyril Gane, who are just head and shoulders above most people in the heavyweight division, most of all Dontel Mays. But also Rodrigo Nascimento was able to, he wasn't taking that guy down. Eventually lost by submission to both the names I just mentioned. So, not the most powerful striker in the feet, although he, hasn't had a chance to mix it up with a lot of people so far. But Hamdi Abdelwahab is a guy who probably makes this look like a bad matchup for him, right? He's a former Olympian in wrestling. He's going to be able to negate the takedown threats of Dontel Mays. It's a striker versus wrestler matchup, right? But if you really dig into the record so far of Hamdi, man, it is the funniest tape study you've ever seen in your life, man. I had so much fun watching that, and that's why I'm so excited for this fight, because ever since 2019, Hamdi has been actually very active, right? He had 5 or so amateur bouts. He had a couple bouts in the George Masvidal promotion, Gamebred, and then he also had a couple, he had 3 so far professional MMA bouts. And man, all of these fights are against the funniest looking slew of people you've ever seen in your life. I had so much fun doing the tape study. Watch the ones in Gamebred that Hamdi was in Masvidal's promotion. He faced a guy that looked like an actual pear. This guy was built like a pear. This guy, I'm not trying to cyberbully anybody here, but look at Matt Strickland. No relation to Sean, I don't think. The guy's built like a 6'6" pear. Doesn't look like he should be fighting at all. He gets knocked out very quickly by some easy hammer fists on the ground. He also fought a guy named Corey McKenna in that same promotion where that guy looked like, I don't know, like Parker Porter's like younger, less talented brother. He got knocked out in under a minute as well. Very easy right hand victory. Even most recently, like in his professional MMA bout, he fought a guy in Miami named Tyler Lee. And I swear to God, this guy looks like Guy Fieri, the Flavortown guy. If you're familiar with this guy, the guy shot for a single leg on Hamdi from like a mile away, got punched in the face and finished in a matter of seconds as well. So what I'm trying to say is the level of competition has not been great. And even in one of Hamdi's amateur fights, I saw a guy who was a very inexperienced bum take him down, get his back. You know, I mean, eventually Hamdi was able to reverse positions. I'm not saying he's not a talented wrestler, but in MMA, I think this guy has fallen in love with his hands over all of these bums he's been knocking out. And if he stands and trades with Dontel Mays for too long, I think it's going to be bad for him. A guy who's actually faced real competition in the UFC, even though he hasn't been successful for Dontel Mays as much as, you know, other heavyweights. Man, I think he's going to have a pretty easy day here with Hamdi. I think Dontel Mays could take down Abdelwahab here and beat him at his own game. So I'm going to call Dontel Mays. I'm just looking to have fun in this fight. You know, I might get to a bet on Dontel Mays inside the distance, perhaps. But, man, just you got to go and watch the tape study on Hamdi. He's the funniest guy. All the people that he fought are so funny looking and just the biggest crew of bums I've ever seen. So I got no faith in the strength of schedule for Abdelwahab in his debut. Give me Dontel Mays pretty confidently here. Up next at lightweight, we have Drew Dober taking on Rafael Alves, the Brazilian guy who's burst into the scene here. You know, he was at featherweight opening into the UFC, forced to go up to lightweight after missing weight by like 11 pounds against Pat Sabatini. The fight did not happen. He was punished by facing Damir Ismagulov. But Rafael Alves, man, he a very, very fast starter, to say the least. Blitzes forward with tremendously strong strikes. Saves nothing for any later part of the fight. He fights like it's a one-round fight. Very muscular guy. Amazing submission game. And good get-up ability if he's facing somebody like Damir as well. So he faced Damir, lost the decision, but he had Damir in all sorts of trouble early, tried to club and sub him. It didn't work. Damir is just too good. And, Damir was able to pick up the momentum in the later parts of the fight. Alves slowed down a bit, but it was hard to judge if he slowed down or if Damir is just that good of a striker on the feet defensively, offensively, and with all the top pressure, and cage pushing. So Drew Dober, the minus 205 favorite here currently, plus 175 underdog for Alves. I think money's coming in on Drew Dober, if I'm not mistaken. He's 24-11, 11 knockouts, 6 submissions, 7-6 indecisions. He's been in the UFC for a long time. He's 33 years old now. Both guys are 5'8", with Drew Dober having 2 inches of reach. So coming off of 2 losses, and now finally a win over Terrence McKinney in his last fight, ending the hype train of McKinney for a bit. So he's got 1 KO loss, does Drew Dober, but it was like 11 years ago, way before the UFC. He's been in some troubling situations in the UFC, but nothing that's put him out. He has struggled time and time again over the past, 10 years over grapplers, right? He only loses to grapplers. He's got heavy hands at lightweight, and if you're going to stand and strike with him, you might be in some sort of trouble. He'll get his opponents out of there early, and never really has to be a high output striker. He'll end the fight early or he'll lose a decision, usually getting taken down and controlled or tapped out. So, you're talking about guys like Nick Hein, Leandro Silva, Efrain Escudero, Olivier Aubin-Mercier. All these guys have either subbed him or controlled him on the ground. Benil Dariush triangle, armbarred him. Islam Makhachev, of course, did Makhachev things, arm triangled him. But Brad Riddell got a decision on him, but 5 takedowns and a lot of control time. So not the best takedown defense, always struggling, always live to get submitted early. So that falls right into the strength and wheelhouse of Alves. So I like Alves to be a very big underdog here, about a plus 180, maybe getting closer to plus 200 as the week goes on. We'll see, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who starts so fast, kind of like Terrence McKinney did. And what happened? Terrence McKinney got a flying knee, a bunch of ground strikes, almost ended the fight on Drew Dober within, the opening bell. So the difference here is Alves will open up the same way, looping hooks, good combinations. He likes the flying knee as well. But he's not going to go for the ground and pound. He's going to go dive onto a neck and probably jump guillotine, and he might just damn well get it. So I'm going to call round to 1 sub for Alves here, mostly because he's a big underdog, and I see a clear path to victory here against Drew Dober, who's time and time again always been susceptible to good grapplers. So maybe if you're on the Drew Dober side and you don't believe in the gas tank of Alves, you could live bet Drew Dober after round 1. Where Alves does his thing, puts him in trouble. Maybe you get a better price tag. Maybe it's closer to even money instead of a 2-1 favorite for Drew Dober. Sure. Otherwise, I like Alves inside the distance. I like him by sub. Maybe the round 1 sub prop is juicy, but honestly, the money line is good enough for me at like plus 180 and climbing. So round 1 submission for Rafael Alves. I'll take the underdog here. Okay, interesting fight at welterweight. Once again, up next is Alex Morono taking on Matt Semelsberger. And just straight off the bat, I mean, I think Alex Morono is always overlooked because of the way that he looks. He's a very doughy, very pasty-looking guy. His nickname is the Great White, for God's sake. It looks like he's never seen the light of day. And for being a 5'11", 73-inch reach, 31, kind of a normal-sized frame for 170, you'd assume that he's a little bit ripped up and muscular, but he's got like no muscle definition. Not that you need that to be a fighter, clearly. He's 15 fights into the UFC, 10-5 record, and very durable, very skilled. But I think he's always going to be overlooked and usually the underdog in a lot of fights because of just his physical appearance. Now, Matt Semelsberger looks more like a fighter, sometimes rocks, the crazy haircuts. He's got tattoos, he's 29 years old, 6'1", the 75-inch reach, much more muscular, lean physique for welterweight. Knockout artist in some ways in the UFC. He's knocked out Jason Witt and Martin Sano for a combined 30 seconds of cage time between those two knockouts. He's 4-1 in the UFC so far. Very good skills. He looks like he's got all the goods to be a potential prospect here at 170. But again, we haven't really seen that much of him in the cage. He had those 2 quick knockouts. He had a couple decision wins and 1 decision loss to Chaos Williams. So Morono has not only had 3 times as many UFC fights, but I don't even know how to total this up. You'd have to ask my guy Uncle Weezy MMA for the stats in the Excel spreadsheets, but he has to have had like 10 times the amount of time in the UFC. Overall, most of Morono's fights have gone to decision, win or lose. I think he's positive in decisions. Again, positive record in the UFC overall. The only TKO stoppages he's had in the UFC are over Zach Otto and Donald Cerrone. I think he's had 1 submission win as well. He's had more back in Legacy FC before the UFC, but that's, like pre-2015 or so to see those. He is a very good BJJ practitioner, and you can see that the way he can easily transition, get back takes, get hooks in, body triangles, things like that. He's very good on the ground, although not showing the finishing potential so far. Durable, he's had a few knockdowns in his UFC tenure so far, including a really good back-and-forth fight over Nico Price. A fight that he lost ultimately at the end of round 2 by knockout, but that was between that and Chaos Williams, his only 2 knockout losses in the UFC. And to be there for 15 fights, that's pretty darn good. So he's a plus 140 underdog. Matt Semelsberger, the minus 160 favorite. Again, pretty crazy, because what have we seen from Matt Semelsberger? Some very good long striking, some good defense, a little bit of takedown defense, but mostly, most people aren't trying to take him down. But he fought Carlton Minus in his debut, an Alaska FC guy who is no longer with the promotion, went 0-2. Doubled him up on strikes, got a decision victory there. Okay. He fought Jason Witt, who's very, very chinny and a little bit old for the division, knocked him out in 15 seconds or so. He faced Martin Sano, who is the Diaz brothers' best friend that went on the card when Nick Diaz came back. He knocked him out in like 16 seconds. He lost the decision to Chaos Williams, a little bit timid to, step in range with Chaos Williams as you should be, but he got outstruck on the feet regardless. And then he fought most recently AJ Fletcher, another guy making his debut. And it was a very close fight, good control time for both guys. I believe AJ Fletcher outlanded him on the strikes officially, and he was, usually fighting off submissions from AJ Fletcher, the young newcomer. So 3 of Matt Semelsberger's fights so far have been against people making their debut. Jason Witt, a little bit past his prime and chinny. and then he lost to Chaos Williams. So it kind of destroyed his record right there. He is 10-3 overall, and he shows he's got the good build, good athleticism, good speed. Both guys have very good cardio and are very good at counterpunching. But I gotta favor all of the UFC experience, for Alex Morono. The consistent striking over many 3-round fights that he's won. So he's the better minute winner usually. Very, very durable, I've seen, and rarely getting knocked out. So of course Matt Semelsberger has that early flash KO power, but I gotta go with decision for Alex Morono here. I think he's always going to be overlooked because of the way that he appears. Is just not that intimidating, and not very memorable out of 15 UFC fights. But when you go back and look at them, he does have flashes of brilliance. Very good 1-2 combinations that he can blitz into range with. If you slip up for 1 second, he's on your back and can take you to the ground if he chooses to. So give me Morono to win by decision. As an underdog pick, I think there are much worse underdogs on this card. Okay, up next at 205 pounds, light heavyweight clash between Anthony Smith and Magomed Ankalaev. They finally meet. I say finally because it seems like an inevitability that Anthony Smith fights this guy. He's kind of fallen into this sort of high-level top 15 gatekeeper role at light heavyweight, right? He can, he went on his title run a few years ago, was unsuccessful. Now he can, pretty much beat all the guys that don't belong in the top 10, but he loses to those upper echelon guys, this Anthony Smith. Very awesome career for this guy. 33 years old, 6'4", 76-inch reach for the former middleweight years ago. Magomed Ankalaev, the Dagestani, is 30 years old, 6'3", 75-inch reach. They will match up very well. 17-1 for Ankalaev. His one loss coming by submission at 1 second left in the third round against Paul Craig. In his debut, he's since been on an 8-fight win streak in the UFC for Ankalaev, minus 500 favorite as a result, plus 400 or so underdog for Anthony Smith. As I mentioned, he was a former middleweight, and he fought, like Strikeforce at select events, Bellator, CFFC, where he was the champion at middleweight. Didn't fight 205 until he fought my boy Rashad Evans and knocked him out, retiring him from the UFC. But man, if you look at this guy's statistics, he had like 35 fights before entering the UFC. He's 36-16 as a professional now. Only 5 of those 52 fights for Anthony Smith have seen the judges' scorecards. 20 knockouts, 14 subs. He's been knocked out 9 times and submitted 4 times as well. So all those numbers would lead you to believe that this fight has a very slim chance of seeing the scorecards, with 9 knockouts for Ankalaev as well. But, the styles really make the fights here. And I think this might be a very slow, boring decision win for Magomed Ankalaev. Anthony Smith is very eager to play off of his back. He's got good jiu-jitsu, good triangle chokes. He can really reverse people well on the ground, get good back takes the way he did against Gustafsson, sink in the choke. He's very good, and for being like a heavier guy, you don't often see the slick submission game. It doesn't look as fast as some of the smaller guys, right? Like, the smaller guys, they'll be thinking 5 moves ahead. They'll be setting you up for one thing and they really want a different joint lock. Anthony Smith is kind of like that, even though he's a big 6'4", 205er. Able to, submit high-level guys, right? Like Ozdemir, Ryan Spann, Gustafsson, even Devin Clark by Triangle. And he's been he's headlined 8 different main cards now. So 8 potential 5-round fights. He's only actually seen the 5th round twice. So just a lot of finishing potential for and against. And both of those 5th rounds he's seen have been devastating losses for him against, Glover Teixeira and John Jones. So, Ankalaev has proven to be a pretty good potential, potent finisher, but it's usually against guys that are very eager to wildly exchange with him, right? Like Marcin Prachnio is super chinny, gets knocked out all the time. Ian Cutelaba in both of their fights, wild man, got countered both times and stopped. Dolce Lungiambula, I believe, was the other finish that he's had for Ankalaev. I think it was like a round 3 gassed, slow Dolce Lungiambula. So since then, he's kind of been on a decision streak, right? Against guys like Volkan Ozdemir, Nikita Krylov, and these are all good wins. And then most recently, Thiago Santos in a 5-round fight where he kept Santos in the back foot, who's been super timid to throw these days. So if I give the best attribute for Anthony Smith at this weight class, his submission offense and his ability to win off of his back, I'd probably give the deciding factor here for Ankalaev. His best attribute is just like his well-rounded game plan and not putting himself in bad positions. He can really hold top pressure well. He's very good on the feet as far as his defensive boxing goes. So very strong hands, very good ability to hold top pressure and get takedowns and win minutes. I think that's what he's going to do here. I think Anthony Smith at some point will, be throwing those leg kicks to the calf early that he finished Jimmy Crute with, trying to do something to Ankalaev. Ankalaev probably going to box with the hands a bit, eventually back up Smith to the cage, grind him against the cage, get a takedown. Smith will think he's got a couple rounds to burn, being used to these 5-round fights, play jiu-jitsu off of his back. Meanwhile, Ankalaev's just landing strikes in full guard the whole time. Maybe there might be like a ooh-ah moment where Smith throws up his legs, goes for an armbar, goes for a triangle, tries to set something up. I think Ankalaev will get out of it and probably advance to like a side control or something even better. So I think this will be a boring decision win for Magomed Ankalaev. I'd like to know what that prop is. I'm not quite sure what the decision is for Ankalaev, but I'd be interested in taking that bet. Okay, a battle between two top-ranked flyweights is up next, between Alexander Pantoja, who is number 4, taking on Alex Perez, who I believe is still number 6 somehow. So Perez is plus 150, the underdog, minus 175 for Pantoja, the favorite. And I gotta be honest, I think Pantoja could be a bigger favorite in this matchup for some things that aren't even skill set related in some ways. Let me explain. So Alex Perez has missed weight time and time again. Before he even got into the UFC, this guy had trouble making flyweight. In the regional scene, he's got so many asterisks on his record for catchweight bouts. And I'm not even talking about those. I'm talking about times he actually was listed as missing weight. It was like the fight day he missed weight at 125. That happened 3 times at flyweight and once at bantamweight before he even stepped foot in the octagon. Now, in the UFC officially, he's missed weight at least 2 or 3 times. A couple of those were against Matt Schnell, where he was hospitalized for one of those, had to pull out another time fight week for undisclosed health reasons, which we know would be when those final pounds aren't coming off the way they should before the fight night. So, and then his last time, he finally made, like 126 and a half against Matt Schnell, and Matt Schnell did not accept the catchweight bout. So he hasn't fought since, late 2020 against Davison Figueiredo, where he took a short notice replacement fight for the championship belt and got guillotined a couple minutes in. It's just hard to bet on this guy, and I don't understand how he's still allowed to fight at flyweight or even attempt it. There's been guys over the years, and women especially, where they miss weight once, they're forced up a weight class, or they miss weight one time, he berates them, says that they're too fat. They miss weight one more time, now they're officially banned at that weight class. So I don't know how Alex Perez gets away with fighting at 125. He must have some inside connections or something, but that alone just makes it difficult for me. I went into this whole spiel about how he's missed weight like 8 times at flyweight. That alone makes it hard for me to believe this fight will even take place Saturday. It'll probably be at catchweight if it does happen. And how can I bet on a guy who's going to be barely making weight, looking terrible on the scales, and maybe slow and sluggish in the octagon? So he does have good leg kicks, as we've seen against Juicier Formiga, the Fire Ant, very good UFC veteran. That's actually the only UFC win that Alex Perez has over a UFC fighter with a winning UFC record. Everybody else that he's fought has been either cut from the promotion or just had a horrible record in the UFC. So not very good of a resume for Perez. He looks amazing when he's in the cage. He's very fast, pretty powerful with the hands, a very good slick submission game, usually capitalizing on the opponent's mistakes with guillotines, anaconda chokes, even an arm triangle win he had. So, he's got some pretty slick submissions, a good fight-ending ability, and he's pretty tough as well. Never been cracked on the chin and put out, except for by Benavidez. But you got to look at who he's fighting, though. I mean, he's fighting guys, like I mentioned, that, Mark De La Rosa. We're talking about Jordan Espinosa. These guys have been long since cut for losing fights in the UFC, contract not renewed, not a great strength of schedule for Alex Perez, even though it is a pleasure to watch him fight if he can make it into the cage. Now, Pantoja, on the other hand, is very, very good. I mean, 7-5 in decisions, equal opportunity with the way he finishes fights, 9 submissions, 8 knockouts, and at flyweight, he's got very strong power in his hands. He's got a good submission threat as well, and an amazing takedown defense. Against Manel Kape, he was able to fend off takedowns, and against Askarov, he was able to defend. I think he defended like 13 takedowns against Askarov, ultimately losing a decision in loss. But he's always been at the high level. Getting a fight of the night bonus with Davison Figueiredo. Almost the current champion. He's out on on break right now, but still the champion, I guess. He beat a young Brandon Moreno. He knocked out Matt Schnell very early. And like I mentioned, he defended all of the takedowns of Manel Cape damn near, and actually outpointed him to a decision win. I think that was Cape's debut. So the guy has always been hanging at the high level, and I think at minus 175, that's still some good value on that bet. So I will take Pantoja to win. It's hard to bank on an inside the distance finish at flyweight, but if Perez makes it, I just assume he'll be a shell of himself trying to make this weight as normal. It's not going to get any easier as he gets older, coming off of a 2-year layoff almost. Give me Pantoja to win. I'll say he wins by submission somewhere down the stretch of this fight. Okay, heavyweight banger up next between Derek Lewis and Sergey Pavlovich. The Russian Sergey Pavlovich, 30 years old, 6'3", 84-inch reach, which is really the telling stat because that's one of the longest reaches I remember ever seeing in the UFC. He's got basically a 7-foot wingspan at 6'3" for the Russian. Insane. He's 254 pounds in his last fight. I always like to point out the weights of these heavyweights because they can vary quite a bit. Derek Lewis tops the scale at 266 pounds in his last fight, 37 years old, getting up there in age, 6'3" with a 79-inch reach, coming off of a brutal knockout loss to Tai Tuivasa back in February, where I picked him to win. The last 4 times he's fought, I'm really bad at picking Derek Lewis fights. I'm not exactly a fan of the guy. I know that might be hate speech, but I'm not a fan of many of the things I'll get into. But I think I did call him. I'm a big Tai Tuivasa fan too. I think I called him to knock out Tai. I wasn't making videos at the time, and I certainly didn't bet on this fight. But I thought Derek Lewis would win that fight. I thought Chris Daukaus would get the better of him as well. And I knew Cyril Gane would kick the shit out of him. So I'm a little bit salty because a year and a half ago, my biggest betting loss to date since I've been tracking has been against Curtis Blades. I loaded up on Curtis Blades' money line against him, and I loaded up on the overs in that fight too. I believe the over 2.5. With that knockout uppercut against Curtis Blades, stuffing that takedown, that really hurt my bankroll, and it really changed the ways that I bet as a gambler, and kind of made me a better person for it, but a little bit salty against Derek Lewis as well in some ways. But there's just things not to like about Derek Lewis, right? Like the way that he's... I know that fatigue makes cowards of all of us, but he really is a quitter at times. He'll fake eye pokes, fake low blows that didn't happen. He'll do anything to get a breather if the fight goes late and he's uncomfortable. He'll spit out his mouthpiece against the cage just to get the ref to break it up. And he does all these... He's like the Ric Flair of the heavyweight division. He does have 24 UFC fights. He's been in there a long time. The leader in any weight class in knockouts at 13. He is 26-9 with 4-2 decision record. Most of his fights not seeing the scorecards. 21 knockouts, and a lot of them finish late. So he's got very early knockouts, but he can also finish these late as well. Sergey Pavlovich, on the other hand, 15-1, 12 knockouts, 3 decisions, and only 1 loss, and that was in his debut against one of the best fighters of all time, Alistair Overeem, who was able to TKO him. But now Sergey Pavlovich is on a 3-fight win streak, all by knockout, against Marcelo Golm, Maurice Green, and Shamil Abdurakhimov. So 3 fights, 3 round 1 knockouts, and all 12 of his knockouts, even before the UFC, are all in round 1. So you don't see that power translate into round 2 or round 3. Either he doesn't need to do it, or we just haven't seen it yet, So I don't know. How's he going to look? Does that power translate late? Does the speed and cardio translate late in a fight? I'm not so sure. Derek Lewis, we know, is very good at surviving into the later parts of fights. He's been knocked out many times himself, but never in round 1. I think there's one time against Matt Mitrione back in 2014 where he kind of got caught off balance, a short elbow from Matt Mitrione early in the fight, like 40 seconds in, stumbled Derek Lewis backwards, and then he could not recover over the really rapid ground and pound strikes from Matt Mitrione. That was the only time he's been finished in round 1. So Derek Lewis, I kind of see that as a weird little loophole in the strategy of Sergey Pavlovich. Derek Lewis is never the guy that just takes one flash knockout and succumbs to that. It's usually a product of his fatigue later in fights as he gets gassed. As I mentioned, he is kind of a quitter when it gets late. Remember the fight against Mark Hunt? He pretty much had a heart attack in round 4 and just basically gave up, against the cage. So a little bit of a mercy stoppage from Mark Hunt and the ref. And Mark Hunt was happy for that one because he was about to die from a heart attack as well. So the fatigue really does make him quit. In a 3-round fight, he's learned to be so low volume that he really doesn't put out too much fatigue. especially in a fight against Pavlovich. He'll probably just stand forward, maybe throw a couple leg kicks here and there, maybe throw the right hand just to show it's there, feint a little bit, and wait for Sergey Pavlovich to open up. But both of these guys are pretty much counter punchers. Obviously, the big reach advantage for Pavlovich. I think he'll be the one moving forward, kind of keeping Derek Lewis at bay, circling around. But eventually Sergey Pavlovich will open up and land something. And what I've noticed from Pavlovich is even if he lands something that just feels flush to him, like it doesn't really knock out his opponent or put them in too much danger, if he lands like a really flush, right hand, he does blitz forward and then open up with wild looping strikes that leave his chin exposed. He doesn't always return his fist to his chin to block his face. He feels like he probably doesn't need to. He usually gets his opponents out of there with those combinations. But I think Derek Lewis is a guy where he could hit Derek Lewis in the face flush. Derek Lewis might play possum a bit or stumble backwards. But as Sergey Pavlovich opens up, I think Derek Lewis lands a very big counter hook of some type, knocks out Sergey Pavlovich in round 1. That's just my crystal ball of how I see this fight playing out. This is a complete 50-50 pick'em right now, minus 110 on either side. Maybe slight money coming in on Sergey Pavlovich. One of these guys you probably want to bet inside the distance. This could be extremely, extremely boring if neither guy wants to open up, but that's one thing that I see from Pavlovich. I think he will be confident to move forward against the slower mover in Derek Lewis. And once he lands one strike or two strikes flush, that maybe get a reaction out of Lewis, I think Sergey Pavlovich will open up wildly and try to end the fight a little bit too quickly, a little bit too hastily, and get countered and knocked out. Again, I'm not that great with picking Derek Lewis fights. Not a big fan of the guy, and it's hard to bet on Derek Lewis, right? Because he does absolutely nothing until he lands the strike, or he doesn't. So one final stat I'll leave you with is he is 3-0 against a certain level of opponent, and that is the Russians, right? So he's looking to go 4-0. He beat Shamil Abdurakhimov, he beat Alexander Volkov, and he beat Alexei Oleinik. All three Russians, the three Russians he's fought, he's beat them all and knocked them all out. So I think Sergey Pavlovich will fall victim as his fourth Russian on the mantle of Derek Lewis. Give me Derek Lewis round 1 knockout. Okay, co-main event up next. I'm very excited for this rematch between Brandon Moreno and Kai Kara-France. This is a 5-round co-main event spot for the interim flyweight championship, and Brandon Moreno, the former champion, is a minus 200 favorite over the plus 170 or so underdog Kai Kara-France. So, these guys fought at the end of 2019. Brandon Moreno beat him by unanimous decision. Actually, the closing as the underdog in that fight. He is 19-6-2. Those 2 draws were to Askarov and to Davison Figueiredo in his first championship fight. Brandon Moreno, 3 inches of height here at 5'7", 70-inch reach, and 28 years old. He's the younger man by 1 year over the smaller Kai Kara-France. So, Brandon Moreno, he was dropped in that final fight where he lost the championship belt to Davison Figueiredo. Very close 5-round fight that they had, and it was edged out. I think it was a unanimous call for Davison Figueiredo, largely because of the damage shown with those 3 knockdowns, right? So those really edged those rounds. They were close rounds. And that's really where the difference was. I do agree with that. It was a close fight, though. But he's never been finished. He's got that Mexican durability. And that's one of the main attributes for him, right? Durability, constant pace, very good striking, and he never backs down. He doesn't like being on his back foot. And not only does he not like it, he just simply does not allow it, right? He's always the guy who's the hunter, not the prey. He holds the center of the octagon very well. Very good high guard in the boxing. He kind of dips his head forward to try to, use his pull counters to draw his opponents in and bait them into getting countered by his combinations, which, he sets up very, very well. Good combinations, powerful ones, and for some reason he can seem to throw at like 80 to 100% power into strikes and never really fade. He'll do that from round 1 all the way to round 3 or round 5 if need be. And it's just truly, you want these guys to have good cardio at 125. You would imagine that there's no reason not to, but to throw that hard and to have fight-ending power, to do that from round 1 and look the exact same in round 5, tremendous. And I think that's his biggest attribute in this fight. As I mentioned, he does hold center very well. So I would see Kai Kara-France as the guy moving on his back foot for the majority of this fight, looking to pot shot and find his striking selection from the outside. He is the more diverse striker, I will give him that for Kai Kara-France. Good spinning attacks, but also just diversity in the way he aims to the legs, the body, and the head. Whereas Brandon Moreno is largely, if you look up his metrics, he's largely only headhunting, with the boxing, a nice high kick. He does a nice lead left switch high kick, which he'll throw very, very fast, not telegraphed at all. So why is Brandon Moreno the 2-1 favorite here? It's got to be the level of competition. He's had a combined, 13 rounds straight with one of the best flyweights of all time, right? And Deiveson Figueiredo made them very close and competitive. And in the 3 rounds that he won the championship, he made him look like an absolute clown. So, Brandon Moreno, very good finishing potential. He's got good submissions. He's 3-2 in decisions at the UFC level. And, Kai Kara-France has had very good momentum so far, only losing in the UFC so far to Brandon Royval by guillotine in round 2 and to Moreno by decision. So everybody else he's beaten, but the level of competition still not quite there, right? Guys like Howley and Paiva, a good test moving up, knocking out Rogerio Bontorin. Okay, you can. That's pretty good, right? Stay safe against him, knock him out. Knocking out Cody Garbrandt in his debut at flyweight. Former bantamweight champion, but perceived as chinny. So I don't think that the bookmakers are really giving a lot of praise to some of the victories of Kai Kara-France here. He is outsized, and you're looking at a former champion here who's fought at the championship round 5, many times now. I think twice has he done it. I think that's the only 2 times he had the opportunity to do so. Right? There'll be no other time. He never headlined. Did Moreno? He did have a 4th round in the LFA. And before he was cut from the UFC the first time, he did have a main event spot. That's what I was thinking of. He did headline a Mexico City card against Sergio Perez where he lost. That was before he got cut from the organization and had to come back in for a second stint. So he does have 5-round cardio. And as I mentioned, that power translates early and late. He has no issue pacing himself for 5 rounds. So I also think that Kai Kara-France, he had very good takedown defense against Askar Askarov. As a big underdog, he won that fight, but Askarov was not hiding. There was no surprise to his game plan there to get this fight against the fence and get it to the ground. And he was able to control Kai Kara-France for the majority of round 1 before, he fell apart in rounds 2 and 3. I think Brandon Moreno could actually have more success with the takedowns and the grappling in this fight because it'll be a little bit more surprise. The element of surprise, he could hang on the feet. Maybe as the fight wears on and Kai Kara-France slows, he's less, has less speed to avoid some of the takedowns. Maybe then in the later parts of the championship rounds, Moreno will sprinkle in those takedowns. I'm not saying he has to, but just a guess. If things get tough on the feet, he can always, in between rounds, game plan that with his corner and start working in those takedowns, which I think will be way more of a surprise element than the ones that he faced against Askarov for Kai Kara-France. So I think the more unpredictable striking comes from Kai Kara-France, but the stronger pace and pressure comes from Brandon Moreno. And I will take Moreno to win this fight. Is the money line wide? Perhaps. I don't see a lot of extra value on Moreno, but I think both guys will hang in this fight. I think it'll go late. I like the overs in this fight. I still have to see what those numbers are. Stay tuned for the best bets and props if they make it on that video. And I bet those. Otherwise, maybe Moreno by decision could be a look here. I just think he has proven himself at this level. He is a very skilled boxer as well. As I mentioned, baiting people in with the head movement, answering with very strong combinations. And it's just the ability of him not to get backed up. I think he will be doing, it's either you pressure forward and try to back up Moreno, but you're just going to get stuck in the phone book boxing with him. So I think Kai Kara-France will circle to the outside and be the one moving backwards the majority of the time. And I think Moreno will end up winning a lot of rounds off of that dynamic. So give me Moreno by decision. I'm pretty confident in him this week. Okay, it's time for the main event of the evening. Another 5-round title fight potentially between Juliana Peña, defending her championship for the first time at 135 against the woman she took it from, Amanda Nunes. This is the rematch from last December when they fought, and Juliana Peña upset the world. She was like, probably somewhere between a 6-1 and 10-1 underdog. So, props to her. She finished Amanda Nunes in round 2 by, we'll call it quote-unquote submission, but really it was a death gas from Amanda Nunes. She had nothing left after round 1, really, and started getting outstruck horribly, sloppily, and embarrassingly against Juliana Peña, getting stuck with a jab like 10 times in a row. Just very sloppy, embarrassing performance from Nunes, who, in hindsight, Juliana Peña was a much bigger threat than I even gave her credit for. I definitely overlooked her. I was one of those guys parlaying Nunes, just pretty much barely doing my due diligence with the tape study. And that happens when these women are head and shoulders above the rest of the division. Nunes, powerful fight-ending striker, both submissions as well. She had never lost in 8 or 9 years at that point. So Amanda Nunes currently is somewhere between a minus 275 and minus 300 favorite, even as a challenger over the champion. Not very often do you see that, right? Peña is like a plus 230, plus 250 underdog as the champion. I think the last time we probably saw that was Peter Yan challenging back against Aljamain Sterling after that DQ belt gifting. So I think that was the last time I've seen a champion that big of an underdog. Anyways, Amanda Nunes, 34 years old, 5'8", 69-inch reach for the current featherweight champion. She still has that belt. 32 years old, the younger woman here, 69-inch reach as well, 5'7" for Peña. They sized up extremely well in that fight. Amanda Nunes, oftentimes the bigger, more muscular woman, they sized up pretty well when they fought back in December. So Amanda Nunes, 21-5. She is got 13 KOs, 4 submissions, and she is 4-1 in decisions overall. BJJ black belt, a judo player. She comes from a martial arts family. She's just had a lifelong passion for this game. And Peña was her first loss in many, many years. And it was, again, like I mentioned, more of a TKO stoppage than a submission stoppage, really. It was definitely like an exhaustion. The choke was barely locked in for more than a split second, and the champ was tapping. So yeah, Juliana Peña, as I mentioned, she was a bigger threat than I gave her credit for. She's extremely well-rounded at this level as far as having decent cardio, basic good striking on the feet, decent stand-up, decent defense, and solid wrestling. Amanda Nunes, when you look in hindsight, hadn't fought that many good wrestlers up the division. She fought Kat Zingano, she fought Miesha Tate, she fought Shevchenko. These women are decent wrestlers in the division, but there weren't many. Amanda Nunes mostly fighting strikers, right? So she could grapple at will against those women. Get the rear naked chokes, or the Megan Anderson. That was up a weight class, but still, you know what I mean. She was able to tap her out, or she could just strike on the feet. A striker like Christiane Cyborg. Knocked her out in a minute, right? That was a pretty big victory for her to get that featherweight belt. But women that have durability and just won't be wilting under the strikes of Amanda Nunes the way she's used to, like Germaine de Randamie actually gave her some trouble. Valentina Shevchenko, same thing, gave her some trouble. Felicia Spencer, again, decisive loss, but she did all right in certain moments. These women that are actually a little bit more durable were giving Nunes some trouble. And now that the aura of invincibility is gone, maybe Peña will have some success a second time here. She's got the confidence, and she knows that if she can drag this fight late, maybe she can once again break the champion. So I'm going to say that this fight goes, and my guy Lou Betya from the MMA Engine actually tipped me off. We were talking about this at the end of last week, just early leans for this fight card. And he liked the he liked the over 2.5 at plus money. It was at plus 100. So I actually put a couple of units on that. I think this will go late. And our reasoning with that is sometimes you see, obviously the biggest fear for a woman like Amanda Nunes to come back is to embarrass herself again and gas out early because she didn't pace herself early in the fight. So I think she'll be very tentative, choose her strikes a lot more, maybe avoid grappling so much in this one, and just strike at distance and try to outpoint Peña, at least until she gets into a comfortable rhythm in the fight. So that should burn off round 1. That should burn off round 2. We can maybe get to that over 2.5 in this bantamweight fight. Another red flag before the fight that, I kind of thought about, but I didn't think it was a big deal, was she hadn't made bantamweight in quite some time before that fight against Peña, fighting at featherweight, and they finally made her, defend her bantamweight belt that she was carrying around and kind of puppy guarding for a long time. So maybe the weight cut was tough as well. We'll see. Now that she knows what she has to do to make weight properly, now that she knows how she has to pace herself, I think that she will have come back with a championship game plan once again to get her belt back. I think legacy is a big deal here. So there's a lot of speculation. Is the will to win and improve from Nunes and fix her mistake? Was she overlooking Peña the first time? Or is Peña now again, that aura of invincibility, is that gone? Does she have more confidence going in to defend her belt? So you're either going to get an easy plus money tag on Peña, who's already proven that she can beat the champion, or you're getting a big discount on Amanda Nunes, who might look like a minus 1,000 once again. I'm leaning more on the side of Amanda Nunes here, of course. I'm not going to discredit everything she's done in her past just because of one bad performance. Maybe I should, but I'm not going to play it that way. I'm going to play the time props. Like I said, the over 2.5 at even money is my spot here. I like that. I could see a late finish or a decision win for Amanda Nunes. I think she'll play it safe, be the better striker from the outside, defend just play defense on the wrestling and the grappling of Peña, and then maybe Amanda Nunes, when this gets late, can break the champion and get her belt back. So I still like all of the striking power and output of Amanda Nunes. She's not going to be outsized here, and she knows what she had to work on. So give me Amanda Nunes to be once again and new and get her second belt back over Juliana Peña. Okay, there you guys have it. All 13 fights broken down for UFC 277. Peña versus Nunes II. I definitely need a bounce back spot betting-wise this week after losing 2 weeks in a row. 2 freak injuries in a row in the main event, cancellations before the fight even got going. So let's hope that this week goes a little bit better than that. It can't get much worse. Gonna choose the money lines I like, the props that I like, and give those all to you guys in my best bets and props video in a couple days. And this week it'll be a normal best bets and props, but next week on Wednesday for the Santos and Hill fight night, I'll be having my first guest on my channel. Eric Betts Fights, the legend himself, will be joining me on live stream next Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. I'll be talking more about that in the future, posting it on Twitter. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. We'll be having a lot more guests and a lot more differing opinions. A lot of good free betting insight on this channel. So hit that subscribe, don't miss out, and I will talk to you guys next time.